I wouldn't focus so much on purpose, but on building a business that is sustainable. It's totally okay to make money first, but knowingly saying, okay, the mission is still there, but first of all, I need to make money as much as I can to be independent. Don't worry too much about a purpose as long as you build a business, because then when you have money, then you can sit back and relax, and then this whole purpose, it's in you anyway. But don't waste too much time with that purpose stuff. You only pay a lot of coaches to teach you stuff that might help you on a next level.
Hi, welcome to the Leber show, where every week we bring you inspiring stories of success and overcoming obstacles from the worlds of sports, business and entertainment. To get your regular dose of inspiration, click subscribe and hit the notification bell.
After starting out in the corporate world, he owes his first successful business to a bike thief. Today, he is a serial entrepreneur and solves real-world problems through the use of technology. In his newest business, he focuses on creating wows and taking online customers on an emotional journey. Joining us live from Stuttgart, Germany, I'm very excited to have him on the show. Please welcome, here is Michael Pauli. Woo!
Hi, Ronny. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And it's really a pleasure. And today we'll not only learn about becoming an entrepreneur, also what it takes to build not only one, but several successful businesses. And also, of course, how to take somebody on an emotional journey online. But before we get into all of that, when you look at your life today and look at the journey you have taken, was that what you had imagined when you were a kid?
Of course, exactly the way I planned it. No, of course not. No, I've always wanted to do something on my own. That's for sure. But where I ended up now, I've never could have imagined.
Wow! So when you actually started out, you didn't start out initially as an entrepreneur. You started out in the corporate world and a lot in marketing and sales. So how long were you in the corporate world, and what were your learnings from then that still help you today as an entrepreneur?
Well, actually, I always had problems in the corporate world because the way I was acting, thinking, and seeing the world was not compatible with the way corporate businesses work. And I was forced to be an entrepreneur because no one else wanted to have me because I was too much thinking of my own. And if you're in a corporate world, you get always told be an entrepreneur within the company, but if you do it, it's not always seen as the best behavior. So.
Oh wow. That's something actually that I hear quite a bit from entrepreneurs that they didn't really fit in the corporate culture, and then they just went off on their own. Before we're going to get into your entrepreneurial journey, there is one thing actually that stuck to my mind when we had a conversation some months ago. Actually, when you were still in your corporate environment, in a normal job as a salesperson, you went to different countries, not just in Germany, but also Switzerland, and then also to Russia, for example. And you mentioned that one thing that was very, very important was the emotional connections that you built with other people. How could you tell me about that? I remember there was a story also about a hotel in Russia and so on.
Well, when I spent a lot of time in Russia, about 7 years, and building the sales area there. And since I'm not an engineer, but I was selling kind of high-tech machines, I only had one choice, but building trust with my customers and understanding their needs. And it was a natural habit I had always, being honest, being authentic. But in that case, it really helped me because people started to trust me. I was solving their real world problems, like getting spare parts fast, not being so salesy, but solving or building the ground for a really good connection to the customers first. And that was something that taught me that this honesty, this customer relationship, and being friends are really helpful with your customers. It was really an asset. and I wasn't aware of that. Before that, I always tried to sell and try to get my advantage, and trying to get most out of everything for me. And since I went to Russia, I didn't speak the language. I wasn't aware of all these specifics in these markets. We were really selling to huge Russian machine tool companies, and that in that situation, being there with an open heart and listening to your customers was really the only way I could move forward, and that paid off really well after a while.
I remember even a story that you told me when you actually were basically then moved to a different area, and then somebody else was put there to Russia, but they just couldn't do what you did because of the lack of connection.
Yeah, and I think I'm not a singular case here. People buy from people, and it's an old saying in sales. But you have a personal relation to your salesperson, to your sales representative, and you also live through these projects. I mean, we've been living these long-term projects over 2-3 years. And you have a lot of meetings. You have a lot of common ground you cover, and you have successes. You have sometimes you're defeated in some way, and if you win together, this creates bonds. And for that, you can't just exchange someone like that, because you make friends. They are very deep relationships to our customers. And if somebody doesn't respect that and just sees the economic value of this relationship, not so much the emotional value, I think you, at least in these businesses, you'll have a harder time, because it takes time to build trust.
So picking up on that, because nowadays you are a lot online. Your companies are online, so you sell online, and a lot of sales is being done online. Mm-hmm. So how does the personal connection fit into also, or also this emotional connection fit into the online world?
Well, we as humans didn't change that much, to be honest. We still want to be loved, to be heard, to be caressed some way, to be taken care of, and this didn't change. And we all see some kind of Zoom fatigue, and you've seen after COVID how fast all these real life events were growing all over the place, and how fast they were filled, where everybody said before it happened, nobody will travel again, we want to have these huge conferences anymore. And your one of your main jobs is being a moderator at these events and these conventions, and you've seen the same thing, that people want to be amongst people. We are social not social natives, but we are social people, social beings, and so this didn't change much about with all the digitalization. But what changed is the frequency we get hit with messages and with information, and but it's less and less. Yes, it's personalized some way. You get your emails with saying, "Hi, Michael, how are you?" and you get WhatsApps, SMS all over the place. But a real heartfelt message is getting rare, or even a handwritten letter, or stuff that makes you smile. So nobody does that anymore, and that's how we came up with our other idea.
And we will get into that, and we'll get into more of that, how to also build emotional connections online. But before we get there, actually, let's take a step back and let's have a look at how you actually got into the entrepreneurial world, because you already shared that originally you wanted to actually build something. You wanted to build a business. So maybe also somebody would say you wanted to pursue your purpose. But on the other hand, you went out in the corporate world. So there's also this, was it that there was this thought of, well, first earning money versus actually being an entrepreneur, following your passion, or how was it for you? And how do you see that today?
It's a good question, and it's really hard to answer with a one simple sentence, because I was a different person at that time. I had different experiences, and I always had fun organizing stuff. when I was at school, I was always organizing either bands or music. I was helping. I was in the students' organization, and I liked being like being part of a bigger thing and changing things, making things happen. And that always felt right because I could do it, and I was really happy, and not so much being on stage and being like, wow, he did this or that, but it's more like this being in the background and seeing, wow, people had a great party. We could achieve this or that, and you could be kind of the guy pulling the strings and making it happen. So this was something I always liked from very early on. And then you get into the system eats you up. Because you get told you have to study, you have to get your good grades, you have to do this or that. And then fear is creeping in. And I said, oh, maybe I should get a safe job. Maybe I shouldn't do too many things that are unknown, don't in charter territory that hasn't been discovered yet. And I want to be in a safe place. Go to a big company and you do your career. And although my parents were entrepreneurs, so but they were pharmacists. So it's a different market. Somehow it's a business was always at the table, but it's a different kind of business in a regulated market than if you build your own business. So it was not really comparable to other friends who had like parents that were in the.
Because as pharmacy, you couldn't just say like, "Hey, I'm gonna now open up my pharmacy wherever you want it." It was regulated. Like you needed to first get the license in order to build it there, but then there was nobody else who was going to be a direct competitor. So it was basically a blue ocean every time you opened a pharmacy.
More or less, yes. And if you didn't do too much wrong, you could have a good living there. So it was a lot of work though, but it was not so much this competition, discovering new stuff.
So when you see this today, also always this discussion about basically, I want to follow my passion and so on, and compared to, well, I gotta make a living, I gotta earn some money first, or how is that?
Yeah, and that's why I chose. I was following this mainstream path, going to one of the bigger companies and trying my luck there, and very fast I discovered that I'm not made for politics, for being a corporate rat, or I don't want to
offend anybody,
offend anyone here. But for me, I always felt strange when I said, hey, this is not right. That's not fair. And somehow people then acted differently than like at home when you just spoke up when something was wrong because you were independent. So my career path in larger companies always ended with bosses that didn't like the attitude, and most of the time they were weak bosses. I had a few times I was really lucky and I got really supported. But the really strong, bosses were rare. So you most of the time you get pushed down, and that's why I started when I finally my bike was stolen.
I just wanted to say, because in 2014 your bike got stolen, and that actually changed everything, didn't it?
Exactly. Actually, I tried to build a side business all the time, but that was super money driven. I tried all kinds of online things at that time, and how could I make most money as a side hustle? But I found, pardon, but I found that money wasn't my driver. For somehow I wanted something that made more sense and that was a mission without being like on this purpose thing, but something that I wanted to create. And just selling stuff wasn't enough to me. So when my bike was stolen, I was sitting there and drinking, out of frustration, I was drinking a good Swiss beer, and I was looking at my iPhone, and I was checking, and I saw this Find My iPhone functionality, and then I said, Find My iPhone. Why isn't there such a thing as Find My Bike? And then I said, okay, but a stupid idea. That must be there already, because that happens all the time. Bikes get stolen all the time. So somebody must have thought of that. And then I looked it up on the internet, and I found a few bike GPS trackers, but they were all either ugly or not working, or they were just cheap China imports. And I thought maybe there's room for a better solution, because they were really complicated to operate. They didn't have apps, and at that time an app was not like today. It was really hard to get stuff. But now with my qualification as a business guy, without being an engineer, without being an electronics engineer, without being a hardware engineer, and I didn't know nothing about this whole how to build a PCB, how to develop hardware, software, backends. I thought, well, but I'm from Swabia, which is you said I'm from Stuttgart, so we are the country of inventors here. so if others can do it, I can do it as well. So I found a partner or an engineer who was able to produce my idea, and we started coding the backend, and then I ended up, when I took all my money I had, and I bought this development, and I went with a USB stick where supposedly the PCB data, so the printed circuit board data, I went to a manufacturer just in our neighborhood, and I said, okay, theoretically, if I've done everything right, you should be able, with that USB stick, to produce this device on my PowerPoint presentation. And he looked at me as a guy, you're completely nuts. Nobody does that. You should be at least an engineer. You should know what you're doing, and you're just starting out like that. Are you crazy? I said, no, apparently yes. Can you do it or not? So and then they had pity, and they produced it, and that was the start of my electronics career. And after a bit, we found also a distributor. We had a crowdfunding campaign when the device was already ready in the shelves. We had a crowdfunding campaign, and then we launched. And that was the start of
So that sounds a bit like, hey, I'm gonna get a tech engineer of Fiverr, pay him $50 or something in order to engineer or design something, and then go to, hey, this is what I got from Fiverr. Can you build it? I mean, probably cost more than $50, but
yeah, but I was really naive, because I thought when I spend a six-figure amount, this should be way enough to cover expenses, and I soon found out that you need like 3, 4, 5 times the amount to get things moving. And had I known that before, I never had dared to develop it. So sometimes it's also good to not know enough, because then you find ways around, you learn fast, you find partners, you find people that support you, because and because you asked what was the purpose, I just wanted to make it work, because I said it can be done. People have done it before, so I can do it as well. And that was, first of all, the thing to get it running. And the second thing, which really lit my fire, was this Steve. I will make him pay. I will make him pay hard, or not maybe him personally, but all other thieves. They will have a hard time, because this one guy stole my new bicycle. And that was my mission. And it was not so much purpose. It was more like this. And as a kid, maybe you've played police and robber. I don't know how you call it in English, but for me, that was more of a game. Like, can I beat the bad guys? So
it was the Michael Revenge Tour.
It was, but in a funny way. It was not so much of a hateful revenge, but was like, okay, guys, challenge accepted. You won't steal bikes anymore, and I make your life really hard. And after a while, we really had police departments all over the place using our devices. We had some devices had multiple crimes discovered, so police always used them as bait bikes. And these GPS trackers found multiple locations where they had drugs, where they had all kinds of crimes, and that made me happy. And there were others other things that made me even happier, but I can tell you that in a minute.
Wow. So before we actually get into those things as well,
Mm-hmm.
so when you said in the beginning there were some challenges that actually came.
Mm-hmm.
So besides the cash flow thing, which obviously was a thing because you said, okay, you calculated a six-figure budget, which is, I don't know, what something above between 100,000 and a million, so to say. But at the same time, and then you discovered, well, actually, we need a lot more. So what were the early challenges that he had to overcome? Was it just the cash flow, or what, or did everything come down at once, or how was that?
No, one challenge after the other. It was you start with how can I get this thing manufactured? Then you have the first test. Then you have software issues. Then you have hardware issues. Then you build the next generation or the next iteration of your product. Then you have to find people that want to buy it, and more than 50. We need thousands of people. How can you get thousands of people to buy it? Since we have a common issue, a lot of people can relate to bike theft, and then have experienced bike theft. So that was a challenge. Then how can you, and at that time, nobody had these cool smartphones like today with production quality. We had these really old phones. And I had to create a crowdfunding movie, like these Kickstarter clips. And nowadays they are produced with drones and all that stuff. At that time, it was really hard to get someone. So then next challenge again, it was for me, it was kind of a game as well. Can I win this challenge? And so I went to the with a world famous film academy in close to Stuttgart, the Ludwigsburg Movie Academy, and so I thought, hey, these students there, maybe they need a little bit of pocket money, so I will ask there and offer a few $100 to create my movie. So naive as I was, I called there, and the guy said, you know what we're doing, and said, you have film students, and I wanted to offer them a little bit of side hustle. They said, okay, our students, they produce for Porsche, Mercedes, they have these Nike, and when they do spots, they have a budget above 20 to 50,000. And I said, okay, interesting. So next challenge was to convince some of the students there to produce my mini budget film, but with the right storytelling, I was able to convince a few, and so we had a really nice shooting in Berlin. So it was fun, and I learned so much about filming there just by doing that. And so for me, it was again another challenge that was not technology related, but marketing related in that case.
So also, it sounds like there was a lot of persuading people involved. Basically, or also connecting them with your why. Basically, like, hey, you have a bike, and so on. Like, has it ever gotten stolen? Do you know somebody, and we want to change something, and to have them buy into your mission? Was it like that? I guess.
Absolutely, but not being. I didn't do that consciously. So, but I was so on fire, and I handed the fire over to others, so they got involved. But it was not like that I started out. I was just convinced of what I did, and then you still see my eyes that I was really happy to do that, even if it was really challenging. But it was a really tough time, and then when TV, I got at one day, then when the product was out. One of the larger TV stations in Germany, RTL, called us and said, "Hey, we saw on the internet that you have this bike tracking thing. Couldn't you give us 2 devices? We want to track down bike thieves and film it." And for me, that was, wow, now you made it to television. Great. But then at the same time, I was still employed. It was still a side business because I had to bring up all the money to finance the development. And then we had this movie this feature with RTL at prime time, and we got 2 bikes stolen, and we found both bikes. So one was near Cologne, and the other one was in Ukraine. And
wow.
So when we had a second feature when the reporter went to Ukraine and found the bike there. and brought it back by plane. It was crazy, a crazy story.
And great promotion.
You would have thought so. Yeah, you would have thought that if 8 million people see you and your technology on TV during prime time, that my store was sold out. That's what you would assume normally. But
it was not like that.
It was not at all like that. And this promotion, and nowadays it's even worse because there's so much more going on the media, and linear television is no longer that important. But at that time, I thought, when I'm on prime time and I have 8 million people and 60,000 people on my website at once, 60,000 people, and we sold like 5 pieces.
Really?
And that, yeah, I thought, okay, everything is going fine, and we saw like 5 or 6 pieces, and the systems were running. So the market wasn't ready for our product. The technology was cool. People liked it. It was like a bit of CSI Miami story, but the market wasn't ready for this IoT stuff. And we did so much pioneer work. And that's also something which I discovered, that not the first mover takes it all. Now, these days, there are more players on the market that might even have a larger market share than we do, or at least in bicycle, they have a larger market share, because we just were too early. And then but for me, money wasn't the main driver. It was the mission, if you want so. So
I want to point something out here, because he said it's not the first mover who actually then like, there's also this saying that the pioneer oftentimes is the one with all the arrows in the back, because they are out on their own and they just want to build, create, but then they also have to take everything. Like, they have to take all the steps, all the criticism and so on. So after your learnings now, who would you say is then the one who is successful if it's not the first mover?
Well, I
because you got to be early, don't you?
I have to be what? Sorry.
But because you have to be early, right? But not too early.
Yes and no. I mean, if we had stuck to bicycles only, yes, maybe I would have all the arrows in the back. But we pivoted when we found the bicycle market was not large enough, and it's just a really small segment. But people like this B2C tracking, B2C monitoring. We moved to we redeveloped our device and made it more universal tracking device, which we could extend with several sensors, and then we got noted. Then we got some a larger OEM in the caravanning industry found our device and asked us if we could produce a GPS tracker that we did for bicycles, if we could do the same thing for caravans. So we said, yes, of course, no problem. And we pivoted, and now we are way more in the caravanning industry and tracking recreational vehicles, and there are a lot of thieves, and the same fun, just with a lot more money involved, and way more over borders. We're tracking caravan thieves in France, in Belgium, in all over the place. We have way better connections to the police and cross-border police, and it's same fun, just different people, different customers. And so coming back to your question, if we hadn't moved fast, maybe they would have asked someone else. But on the other hand, if we had stuck to the bicycle market, there might have been others that would have taken the share, and it would have really been a fight. Now we have a customer base in the bicycle market, but a way bigger base in the caravan recreational market.
Wow, that's really fascinating. It's really interesting, because what learning that you just shared is really about pivoting. About, well, okay, this is the idea. This is our business hypothesis. This is how we're going to go out. But there might be a way that we have to change, or that we need to go somewhere else, that we need to actually address possibly a different market, or in any way change that. On the other hand, what I was just wondering also, how important is brand building along the way? And when did you start building your brand? And was it just the brand for your business? Did you also start to build your personal brand at the same time? Also, is this something that came intentionally, or did it just go along the way?
I didn't. Although I've graduated in business, I didn't. I was more fascinated about the technology than brand building, and that maybe that's also because we want to also talk about things that or what we could have done better, and I think brand building was definitely something we could have done more. We should have stepped way more forward and maybe be way more in the market and talking way more. And I always wanted to put the product first. And we are now living in a world that is very loud and and you see that in politics, you see that in the product world. Not necessarily the best product wins, but the product with the best perception. And how do you get that perception? It's by being present all over the place, by talking about the product, by promoting your product, very loud. And this is something I haven't learned at home. I rather had parents that said, okay, be calm, be a bit in the background, don't put yourself too much out there, be modest. And I sometimes confuse this personal modesty with like brand modesty, if you want. So that's something I definitely would change. If you have a good product and if you're better than your competition, and if you're really convinced that you're not selling crap, but that you're living your product, then go out there and tell everyone, and then people will see that you're full of desire. And yes, so definitely brand building is key. And I think nowadays it has had even more this strategic aspect with all this internet noise, with so many channels you can promote yourself, try to be really leader in a niche, and rather than going broad, because you run out of money before everybody knows.
That's a very fascinating insight, and also about all of that. One thing that also that I was wondering, that I also wanted to ask you: how much of your success would you contribute to networking or building a network of people also around you in the business world, or just because we were touching it before with your mission and so on, and also I know that you are the president of an alumni group as well. So how important do you see the networking factor in terms of business success?
I've been president of our alumni organization for almost 10 years, and I think networking is one of the most important things, and that you can do for your business, and not networking in terms of who can I know to sell to, but rather where can I help, and going out there with a helpful mindset and connection mindset, like who could I recommend Ronny to? Who did I talk to this podcast could help? Where can I create connections? And if you go out with a mindset like that when you do networking, and then you will receive way more than you could even think of, because but you should start with the giving mindset. So I would say 90% of my success is, or maybe not 90%, but at least 80% is this knowing people, getting connections, getting introduced to someone, and being trustful and being trustworthy when you do things. So I networking, going to events, talking to people is so important.
I like that, and I also like that what you said, to underline that it's really coming from a giving perspective, coming from not from a transactional kind of view that you go in there and say like, hey, I'm going to talk with that person because I want to get this out of that. So it's really about, hey, getting to know the other person, how is the human being behind it, and really figuring out what can I bring that creates value for the other person. And then to create win-win situations, because that's where everybody wins.
And I mean, same for masterminding or masterminds, going to masterminds where you meet a group of people that are in the best case are way better, way more advanced than you, but like-minded, and you get so much out of it, but never what you expected. So when I go to these events, I go there with zero expectations. Try to get ideas. What could I give to this community? But I walk out with loads of things that I could have never thought of. So that's also a different way of networking. Not these big events, but like small events, and but surrounding you with the right people and talk to these people. Don't go to, if you want to be the best soccer player, you don't go into a factory and learn about machine tools. You go to places where other soccer players are, where trainers are, maybe a factory where you produce soccer products, but it's all around that topic. So when you want to start as an entrepreneur, go find spaces where these people meet and try to be helpful.
I actually just want to ask, but I think you just answered it, because I know that there are several people out there who would love to go be in a mastermind, and they are asking themselves, well, how do I find the right mastermind for me?
I think it's a path. You start with one, you find out what's good, what's not so good, and then you do the second, the third, and the fourth, and you will discover that there are some masterminds where you always meet the same people. Then there are masterminds where you always meet different people. Sometimes you have people that are really, really helping. Others just want to stick for themselves, and then it's a way. I think there is no generic recommendation, go to this or that mastermind, because it totally depends on your personal type. And some people like this, let's go out walking on hot charcoals, and others just want to chill and watch the scenery and talk with a cigarette in the hand. So,
and worst case is you just have to build your own mastermind. Like, that's, if you don't find it, then build it, basically.
But that is something I would recommend not to start with. I would really go to first to go to events, then and always buy these VIP tickets. I know they're expensive and they're but that's where the interesting people hang around. People spend money to be around other interesting people, and nobody's interested in the food, nobody's interested in all that other stuff, but you find different people in these VIP areas, and nobody's really VIP there, and nobody feels like VIP, but it's you have a different group of people. And if you start out there, you will meet people that have been to masterminds, where you can talk to and say, you've been there and there and there, can you give me some recommendation? And maybe they bring you along, say, hey, this is a cool guy or cool girl, come with me.
And this is true not just at events like seminars, but this is also true when you go to a concert. This is true when you go to sports events, because there are always very, very interesting people at VIP areas. And I'm very lucky that oftentimes, as I'm working at those events, that I get to experience and also enjoy the conversations with very, very incredible people. And that's fascinating. So talking about also one thing that you have created, and this is, I believe, your newest business endeavor, and although this is already a few years old as well, which is about wowing. So it's about wowing people. Can you tell us about the concept? What does wowing mean to you?
It's all about connection. So, and if I look back into my business life, it was always about connection, connecting to people, connecting to customers, connecting to suppliers. And my idea was to use our digital tools we have to create more personal relationships, and to bring together best of both worlds. So we started with a concept of creating personalized video messages in our online shop. And at that time, this was a couple of years ago, there weren't solutions on the market, or at least no solutions that fitted to our needs. So we built our own. We were able to code at that time. We were able to create the solution. So we had the MVP, which I showed to some of my friends.
A minimal viable product.
Yeah. Minimal viable product. So we just wanted to throw it against the wall and wanted to see what sticks. And I showed it to some friends, and it was really all stuck together with Band-Aid and duct tape. And they really liked it. I said, you should build further. So we built a product out of it. And we started with these personal video messages, like sending a WhatsApp message, but by email or by other channels, and trackable.
Is this like Bonjoro or Bomb or something? Is this basically your competitors?
Competitors in some way. It's like, yes, they are also sending videos on certain channels, but our approach was the process, and not only video, but we wanted to create connection. So video is one channel, audio messages is the second channel. And we've been building out the entire world of touching, feeling, smelling, reading, and watching, and wanted to create an immersive experience. And that's what we did with Wowing. Was not so much a video message, but here, visit video message. There, a handwritten postcard. Here's an onboarding box. There's a whatever you want. We've created crazy stuff. We've been sourcing gifts for customers, and that at scale and automated, because that's my second passion is automate things. So how can I automate customer love? So it was a small there's a small border between being just sending out simple stuff and being really handcrafted, having a handcrafted message.
Why video? Why is video such a great tool to actually connect with others on an emotional level?
Video is one of the ways to connect easily. It's better than email. Not as good as personal, like a presence talk, but it gives you audio. It gives you a visual. You can transport emotions, and if it's really personal, it creates some bounding. But it's only one, and in the US, it's way more common to do that. Over in Europe, it's not so much common. But if you do that too often, video messaging is also getting boring. So we as humans, we love the change. We love these different stimulation points, if you want. So if you send video messages all the time, people get bored. It's like if you bring your wife flowers every day. Maybe you should bring a ring, flowers, chocolate, send her dinner, or go with her to dinner, and then it becomes vibrant. And this is the same for a customer relationship. You don't want to always send the same thing, but being really interested in the relationship and creating emotions that matter.
That's very fascinating. I would like to ask you, because you're also a fan of automation. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, with AI, that is basically taking over a lot, or there's hardly anything in the technology world today where there is no AI in it. And talking about video, and now we have the avatars that you can just create through AI, and also you can replicate your voice through AI. Do you see that it's going to go in the direction that basically you're just going to type a voicemail, or you're just going to type a message, or maybe not even that. Maybe that is actually taken over by ChatGPT or something. You just say a few words to ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT is actually going to send it over to a program that's going to create it with your own avatar and your voice and create a video message. Or how do you see that?
Definitely, and there are already approaches that work really well. And just today, or in the recent days, Google published his Vlogger, I think it's called, and the technology really goes down that route, creating virtual avatars, and then also the mouth movements will get better and better. But there's one thing all these tools miss out. That's the heart. And as long as machines don't have a heart and emotions, real emotions, a really personal message will always, or whatever it is, a video message or other stuff, it will always carry this energy of coming from the heart. So I see both coexisting. Like, I mean, an explainer video, like stuff that has to be repeated all over the time. Why not create it synthetic in a synthetic way? But if you want to say hello to someone or really ask, I don't know, hey Ronny, are you going to this or that event? I was so cool when we had beer at the pool outside. Come on, how do you want to simulate that with an AI? Remember when we were sitting there and there was this fantastic sunset and we had this music and you remember these girls dancing? That's nothing an AI can ever say. Not mentioning the dialects. I mean, when you're Austrian, I'm from Baden-Württemberg, where we also have a funny dialect. I think it will be taking very long till the AI can simulate a proper dialect. So I don't fear AI, but I embrace it and try to make things easier where it can be made easier. But personal relationships, they need to be real. So yes, I think that we will have an increase in these tools, but people will get, like with Zoom, they will get bored. And people can have a very fine sense of, is that real or not? And I think you feel the soul of a message, or you feel the spirit of a message. And knowing that someone has taken the time to write you something, to send something, or even has made the appearance that it has been done like that, will make the difference.
Wow, very beautiful. One thing that I would like to also touch, now that you've built several businesses and also they are still running after quite some time, where do you see, or what is the mindset that you need to bring as a business owner in order to be successful?
I was asked that question in another podcast recently. And I answered like, I think it's a psychological disposition, or it's something where you have to have a bit of a, I don't know how to say that. I think it's in you. It's not something you can learn, or where you can. You have to have this desire of doing something. It's nothing that can, at least from how I see it, that can be learned. But if you have this feeling, there's more than I can do. I haven't gone as far as I could, and I'm not happy with it. I mean, there's so many people that are happy with what they are and what they do, and I'm really glad for them. I'm not like that. I always think this is not enough. I have to there's more. There's so many things I don't know, and this is what drives me. I think it's nothing where you can read a book and say, okay, now I'm becoming an entrepreneur. I think it's this inner unrest that you have, that things are not the way you'd like them.
The hunger, the inner hunger for more, to strive, to just be more, create more, to just go to the next level and see what is possible. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that's really something that you need to bring, and you either have it or you do not.
And it's no bad thing if you don't have it. I mean, a lot of people always come up with this, you need to have your mission in life, your purpose and all that stuff. If your purpose is being the best soccer player in your town, go for it. If you don't want to play Champions League or whatever, and you just say, I want to be with friends and I have found my life there, it's great. I mean, I really admire everyone who has this kind of lifestyle, who's happy with what he has. And sometimes I wished I would just lean back and say, okay, everything's super cool, and I don't want to change anything, and that never happens. But there's nothing wrong with that. On contrary, if you found your thing in life, it's great, and there's no need to be entrepreneur. And then we haven't talked about the dark sides of that kind of job we're exerting here. It's because there's also a lot of things people don't talk about often.
Like what?
Like having fear, like uncertainty, like losing friends, like because you change when you go on this journey, you change, and friends who stay where they are, they don't change, and you become a stranger to them. So relations change. You might lose your wife, you might lose people and they can only encourage others if they have a wife that is interested in their business. Take them with you to the events, go with them, make her or him develop together with you, so you don't have this large gap. And these are things you have to be willing to accept. You have to be willing to pay a price for it, no matter what the monetary results are. But you're dedicating way more than, what is it, 40 hours per week, or I don't know what, when you have a regular job. But it's not work. It's different. It's an obligation. It's something you just do. But there's a price tag on it, and you spend your life with other things than other people, and sometimes you're sitting there alone. Nobody can give you advice because you're there on your own. It's tough sometimes, and with all these coachings and trainings and then all that stuff that are on the market, most of the time they're talking about how great it is to be entrepreneur, and the world is open and so on. But there's also the downside, and very few people talk about the downside. And it's not bad. It's not nothing you can overcome. You can't overcome, but you have to be willing to go or to accept that as well, and it makes you greater after all.
That's also very deep and very insightful, and thank you for sharing those thoughts. As we are in the home stretch right now, let's shift into some rapid fire questions. What's one piece of advice that you would like to give to somebody who's just starting out on their journey?
I wouldn't focus so much on purpose, but on building a business that is sustainable. Because that's something I might have not done perfectly in the beginning, that I just followed a mission or something without knowing it. But it's totally okay to make money first, but knowingly saying, okay, the mission is still there, but first of all, I need to make money as much as I can to be independent, to have a business that helps. So that would be my number one advice. Don't worry too much about a purpose, as long as you build a business, because then when you have money, then you can sit back and relax, and then this whole purpose stuff comes. It's in you anyway. But don't waste too much time with that purpose stuff. You only pay a lot of coaches to teach you stuff that might help you on a next level. So that's from my personal experience. One stuff.
Wow. Who is somebody that you admire or look up to, and why?
From an entrepreneurial perspective, or in general?
However you want to answer it.
I think first of all, I admire everyone who is living up to his standards, and that can be a nurse, that can be a successful entrepreneur, it can be a worker, wherever, somebody who is just trying to give his best wherever he's at, and no matter what circumstances. And I have deep respect for everyone who has got this approach, no matter how monetarily successful they are. even just at the reception the other day, I met this guy who was so friendly at the mid of night. He was so friendly, happy, and he liked really his job, although it was really underpaid. But he lifted up to his personal standards, and that's what I respect a lot. When it comes to entrepreneurs, I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs that take responsibility, and responsibility by going through the dark times as well, taking care of their employees, and not just letting the business tank and disappear. So this is a lot of the case for all family-driven businesses. These people would rather chop off their left arm before having the business slip away and having their employees suffer.
What's the best book you ever read and why?
I don't know if there's a best book. I read a lot, and I wouldn't say there's a best book. But there are good books at every time of my life. So and sometimes I read them twice at different times, and discover different things. But I would recommend everyone to read instead of just watching YouTube or Netflix. But read and make notes. That's something which goes way deeper.
What's something that you practice on a daily basis that moves you forward?
I wish I could have answered like doing my daily morning routine, drinking a glass of fresh squeezed lemon juice, and then and then do 50 minutes of high intensity sport. But I'd rather say that my motto every day is a new day. So for me, it's just see every day as a new chance to succeed. And that's at least at some times of life, it's something that brings me through bad times as well.
All right, we got two more. What's something that you're excited about right now?
Right now, I'm excited about the time we are living in. We are at an enormous change of everything. Society, especially in Europe, we have. You have the feeling that the world we've known before has completely changed, and a lot of people have fear. A lot of people are afraid and say it was better before. I think we live in the most exciting times in the last 100 years, when with AI, with completely new structures, with geopolitical shifts, and yes, it's scary, and I'm afraid sometimes too. But things offer opportunities, and who would have thought that we could live in such a time 5 years ago? So this is I'm really excited about that we live in a world that changes in a scary fast way. But on the other hand, if we stay calm within us and stay within our heart, I think we have nothing to fear.
And what's one thing that you cannot live without?
My family, I'd say. That's something that with all this entrepreneur stuff, sometimes it's getting too short, and but this is something I wouldn't want to live anymore. But maybe slightly followed by the iPhone. But I love technology, but I also love nature, yes, and family.
Beautiful. So if somebody got inspired, if somebody would like to know more about you or possibly even work with you, where can they best find you?
Well, on LinkedIn, you'll find me, and I think you can put the link under the podcast description,
of course,
show notes. But on our website, wowing.com. we can figure out what we're doing.
Fascinating. So any last 30-second thought that you would like to leave us with?
I think we've talked about so much. I wouldn't want to add there. I think there's a lot of stuff we've been covering.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, for all your wisdom, for all your golden nuggets that you gave us, and all the best to you. Looking forward to seeing you again in person at some point, and have an outstanding day. Thank you. Michael Pauli. Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. To make this content even more valuable for you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, and also share this video with somebody you care about who absolutely needs to see this. Thank you very much. Have an outstanding day and see you next time.